Hello and welcome to Harmia. This video is about Kykeon, the ancient Greek sacred drink of heroes, mysteries and revelation. We're going to talk about it, we're hands-on going to learn how to make it, and we're actually going to drink it. Indo-European spirituality and culture is filled with sacred drinks. It's a key concept in Indo-European spirituality, so very important to understand. It's also a deeply complex and complicated subject. Basically, it has to do with all of the creation and the cosmic order. So in addition to this video, where I'm going to talk about, make it and drink one of these sacred drinks, I also highly recommend episode 12 of the Harmia podcast, where I go much more in depth when it comes to all of this. You'll find that podcast on this platform and also on Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you listen to podcasts. So episode 12. Now, among the Indo-European peoples, there was a belief and tradition that divinity could be ingested, that truth could be tasted, and that by mixing certain elements, most often grain, honey, milk, herbs, or something more mysterious, humans could temporarily cross the boundary between mortal and the gods. A sacred drink that by drinking it you could touch the divine and be provided immortality, inspiration, ecstasy, and power, at least for a while. This video is about Kykeon, one of the sacred drinks. But again, the idea of a sacred drink is far, far older than Greece. Across all of the Indo-European world, ritual beverages symbolize transformation, the crossing of limits, the renewal of power, and the gift of divine knowledge and inspiration. The original sacred drink among the Proto-Indo-European peoples was called nectar and medu. Nectar, and this is of course the same word as today's nectar, means overcoming death, no death or immortal. This is the nourishment of the gods. They too are in need of this nectar, hence why we ritually offer it to them. And medu is the ancient Indo-European root of today's mead, the mead of inspiration and immortality. The sacred drink exists in both a cosmological and a ritual sense. In the cosmology, the point at which the drink enters our realm is the mouth of the well. It enters from the very center. And this is where the water from the well, the force of chaos entering the cosmos, meets with the fire of offering. Nectar is formed by this mixing. We have seen the importance of the controlled influx of chaos for the survival and thriving of cosmos. Chaos must be ordered so that it doesn't destroy cosmos. But it also must remain chaotic if it is to have any effect. This is done by the creation of nectar, which is both water, chaos, and fire, the ordering sacrificial fire. In ritual, this mixture of fire and water may be created and then consumed. We become equated to cosmos, and it is we who are revitalized by chaos. On a ritual level, this drink is a mixture, perhaps to reflect its dual nature. Most commonly it contains water, honey, a psychoactive substance like alcohol, ergot or ephedra, and something white, a dairy product, usually milk or cheese in this case, and or barley also counts as the white. So as a side note, as you can see, in both cases it's about mixing and a mixture. So therefore it's so fitting that Kykeon means mixture or to mix. We'll come back to that. To the gods, the sacred drink is about immortality, eternal youth and strength and creation. It also confers the eternal natural order to those who drink it. It has the power to give blessings for each of the three functions: poetic inspiration, invincibility, and healing and fertility, as well as the trifunctional gifts such as sovereignty or the ability to act according to the cosmic order. It appears as a heightener of abilities and activities. When consumed by a priest, it increases his or her powers of vision and insight. Similarly, it makes a poet more eloquent, a warrior more powerful, a king more generous and just, and so on. The original sacred drink, nectar, consisted of water and fermented honey, so mead. And also a decoction of barley, and also the pressing or filtering through these barley grains. And then also milk or a dairy product. Among the ancient Vedics, we see the sacred drink soma, which was called the immortal drop. And it was pressed from a sacred plant and consumed by priests and gods alike. Soma was not merely a substance, it was a god, a living force that lifted the drinker into ecstasy and wisdom. The Vedics also has sacred drinks like sura, a fermented barley drink. They had madhu, which is the same word as medu and mead, so a fermented honey beverage. And they also had amrita, which also means non-death or immortality. So speaking of this, here you once again see the importance of barley to the Indo-European peoples. I therefore also recommend you to check out the videos about when we make barley cakes and barley. There's a video about barley in general on the Haminga platform after you've watched this video. Now, the Iranian peoples had their homa, which has the same etymology as soma. They also had a sacred drink called kwarena or khwarena, meaning divine glory and shining. They had the power to grant strength, courage, and vision, a bridge between human and divine realms. Among the Germanic peoples, we obviously have the famous mead of inspiration. And one very interesting thing here is that all these sacred drinks, all over the Indo-European world, have basically the same myth around it, that the drink has been stolen and has to be taken back to restore order. So again, the chaos and order theme. But I'll talk more about that in another video. Let's stick to Kykeon. The Celts too had sacred drinks, often mead. It transformed. It turned ordinary people into something more. It made people wiser, gave poets divine speech and poetic ability. It gave warriors a fearless heart, and it was a drink of sovereignty. On the European continent, we have the famous grave of the Celtic prince from Hochdorf in Germany, dated to around 530 BCE. Among his grave goods were 9 drinking horns, one actually a meter long and thus probably meant for the prince himself. The drink for this horn was to have come from a cauldron 80 centimeters high and 104 centimeters across, which had once held 500 liters of a drink made with honey and 100 different herbs. 58 of those herbs have been identified. And then we come to the world of ancient Greece. They too, of course, had several sacred drinks, or words for sacred drinks: ambrosia, nectar, and in this case, Kykeon. Ambrosia too meaning immortal, or no death. Again, the word Kykeon means to mix or to stir, and that's exactly what it was, a mixture. But it was far more than just a simple beverage. It was a sacred potion, deeply tied to ritual, spirituality, and even the mysteries of life and death. It stood between the realms of the ordinary and the divine. Kykeon carried heroic significance. It appears in the Iliad and the Odyssey not just as a drink of ritual, but as a symbol of endurance and vitality. When the hero Nestor mixes Kykeon for his warriors, it isn't merely to quench thirst, it's to restore their strength and spirit before battle. In Homer's world, Kykeon was a drink of balance, part sustenance, part sacred energy. A mixture that united body and soul, mortal effort and divine favor. And this dual nature, humble yet holy, earthly yet transcendent, is what made Kykeon so sacred. It reminded the Greeks that the divine was not far away, that through the simplest elements of life, like grain and water, one could touch the mysteries of the cosmos. To the Greeks, Kykeon symbolized transformation, turning hunger into strength and ignorance into enlightenment. Whether drunk by a peasant after a long day's work or by a seeker standing before the gods, Kykeon embodied the same idea that through mixing, change and understanding are born. And that's why Kykeon was more than just a drink. It was a spiritual key, one that opened the door between human and divine, between life and what lies beyond. The Indo-European peoples drank to remember the cosmic order. They drank to renew life. They drank to dissolve the walls between human and divine. The sources show us several versions of this Kykeon. The simplest recipes describe it as a mixture of barley, water, and herbs, or like mint, sometimes sweetened with honey or flavored with cheese. We're going to come to that. But some in the most secret forms, it may have contained psychoactive ingredients capable of producing visions and spiritual experiences. Some even suggest that Kykeon's power came from its ingredients, that certain versions used ergot-infused barley as a natural fungus with hallucinogenic properties. The most famous drinkers of Kykeon were the initiates of the Eleusinian Mysteries, one of the most sacred religious rites in the ancient Greek world, which actually took place for over 2,000 years. Held in honor of Demeter and Persephone, these ceremonies promised spiritual rebirth and a glimpse of the afterlife. During these rites, participants fasted, purified themselves, and finally broke their fast with the drinking of Kykeon, which then became something extraordinary. It was said that through this ritual they experienced profound revelations, insights into the cycles of death and renewal that shaped all life. To drink Kykeon was to participate in the eternal cycle, the descent of Persephone into the underworld and her return to the light. But Kykeon wasn't only for the initiated. In Homer's Iliad and Odyssey, it's also a commoner's drink, a nourishing mixture consumed by soldiers, farmers, and travelers. It could refresh their weary or serve as a simple, humble meal. In this way, Kykeon bridged two worlds. It was both an everyday drink and a vessel of divine mystery. And with that said, this video is about this Kykeon, the making of it and tasting it. On the Hamingia platform, there's also videos where you can learn the real and full sacred drink ritual. That we're not going to do that today. And also the making of the original Indo-European sacred drink, medu or nectar. But now, let's mix some mixture. Okay, so first of all we're going to make the foundation, the so-called alfita mix, or almost like a porridge. It's a mix of toasted barley and water. For that, I first coarsely grind barley grains, pound it in a mortar without reducing it to flour. In this case, the barley flour is quite fine, but it's up to you how coarse you want it. I make sure the pan or skillet is hot. I pour the barley into the skillet and start toasting it. I start stirring straight away not to burn the barley flour. This is one of those things where nothing happens, and then all of a sudden it's burnt. So keep an eye on it. For the next step, I use a small Dutch oven. I pour over the toasted barley into it, and I mix something like 1 part barley to 10 parts water, because this is going to boil for a while. So we let this come to a boil, and then we let it simmer for 1 or 2 hours. It's going to get quite thick. You want this alfita to become quite thick, almost like a barley porridge. Our ancestors used both the boiled barley and its decoction. Obviously, they used everything. While this alfita is simmering, it's a great idea to say prayers over it, considering how sacred barley was and is to Indo-European peoples. You will find several prayers to barley in our prayer collections here on the platform and in our books. I then strain the barley into another bowl. In some versions they don't do that and use it all in one go, or in one mix, and in some versions they eat the barley as regular porridge. This pressing part is also a very important step. To the ancients, this was a ritual in itself, not the least considering that soma, for example, means to press or to extract the juice. You'll learn more about this in the full sacred drink ritual and also in the podcast episode I mentioned. But definitely read some prayers here too. We let the liquid cool down. Okay, so this is an optional step. Some sources claim that Kykeon was in fact the barley itself, mixed with sweet red wine. So that's what I'm doing here. Red wine into the barley porridge and mix. It actually tastes good. A bit unusual, but good. Better than expected actually. Maybe I don't recommend it as your Monday morning breakfast though. Okay, so for the quote-unquote real Kykeon, we're gonna use our barley decoction, red wine, honey, and grated goat cheese. Yep, that's the way it is. I mix 2 parts alfita to 3 parts wine. That's what most sources say, and that's also a good way to not to make it too thick. And then I stir in the honey. I add the grated goat cheese. And here I'm just using a sieve to pour it over into a nicer bottle. Definitely a good idea to say prayers here too, to the finished product, and so to say thanks. Okay, so I am back from the kitchen. The making of the Kykeon felt really nice. It felt a bit like making history come alive, and it felt really purposeful. And here we have a bottle of the sacred drink itself. Looks like this, red, whitish. And here's the rest of the alfita, the boiled barley meal, which I'll use for the making of the original Indo-European sacred drink in another video. And since bragging is a very Indo-European thing to do, I'll also take the opportunity to do that and say that I used my own home-brewed wine, red wine, when I made the Kykeon, dedicated to the river goddess. And of course I've also poured myself a glass of Kykeon, because what would a Kykeon making video be without a Kykeon tasting? Before I taste and give my first impression and honest opinion, I just want to say that this is obviously not a full sacred drink ritual. It's just an educative video so that you'll learn about it and how to make it. And a little review of the drink itself. The full sacred drink ritual will also be added here on the platform. So I'm about to taste. I'm quite sure that this will be a bit of an acquired taste. First of all, because nowadays we're not very used to having barley in our food, and definitely not in our drinks. Also because of the consistency. It's basically porridge mixed with wine. And third, there's also grated goat cheese in this porridge wine. So that will be very interesting. But maybe it will make me even more of a hero if I start drinking it. So here goes nothing. Let's first have a sniff on the nose. Not bad. It's a bit milky, and that was, of course, meant to be that way. Remember what I told you about the importance of milk and dairy products and barley. So on the nose, actually smells quite pleasant. Smells like red wine with almost with some cream. It's a bit sweet. My wine is very dry, so I guess the honey and the cheese, the dairy product, has made it quite sweet. Smells good. Smells like almost like red wine that's been oaked a lot. So there's vanilla, almost like vanilla ice cream. Yeah, not bad at all. I'm still very interested in drinking this, but the smell is not bad at all. Actually, quite. I've chilled this one, so it should be quite refreshing. But again, it's porridge, red wine, honey, grated goat cheese, etc. So an acquired taste, I'm quite sure. But again, let's have a sip. Yammas. Not at all as bad as I had expected. Not at all. It's quite earthy. Okay, then the aftertaste is a bit bitter. It really lingers. But not at all as bad as I would have thought. The wine is definitely there, not surprising. Don't really taste the cheese, which I think is a good thing. And the barley flavor is definitely there too. It's like a bit of, yeah, it's like, you know, the like oatmeal or some kind of porridge. You have it there too. But it's actually quite refreshing, especially since it's cold. Not at all as bad as I would have expected. Some people, or some sources also say that they used to have herbs in there, like pennyroyal and mint. And that might have been a good idea, actually. I have another sip. Red wine, milky, bit bitter, but quite good. Yummas. Again, an acquired taste. I don't want to say anything bad about this. I want to be respectful, since this is a very sacred thing to do and drink. Very long history. So again, to me, I'm not very used to it, so it's an acquired taste for me. And it is what it is. It's red wine. I guess that I'm quite sure that since my wine, nowadays we always make such dry wine, quite sure that, and I know that the Romans and the Greeks had much sweeter wine than this. So I think that would have helped, actually. And the taste really, yeah, it lasts, it lingers. But yeah, you can see, it tastes like it looks. And does it give me this feeling of being a hero, strengthened? Maybe, actually. Yeah, well, the alcohol gives me this little tingle and this little warm feeling, which it's empowering. So I think to be really, to get a lot of energy out of this after a long, hard day, for example, if you're not drinking this in the rituals or the mysteries, I think I should have put some more, even more barley, the alfita, the barley porridge almost, the toasted and boiled barley. But that would have put some more carbohydrates in it, and I would have been given some more energy. But that would have also changed the consistency even more, made it even thicker. But this, not as bad as I would have thought. Quite good, acquired taste. Maybe not every day, but in the rituals, definitely. And the rest I will, of course, pour as libations to the ancestors, the spirits and the gods, the divine kindreds. And the alfita, very thick, but this will be the base for the original Indo-European drink. So yeah, the rest of the alfita will be used for making the original sacred drink, nectar, and what's left in this Kykeon bottle will be poured as libations. I really hope you've enjoyed this video and that you've learned a lot. I certainly have. When I made this and when I took a sip of this fantastic drink, felt like history was present, and it felt like tasting history. So again, yammas. We have drunk the Kykeon, we have become immortal, we have gone to the light, we have found the gods.